Jam-packed episode of the DNVR Nuggets podcast ahead. We've got to talk about Jamal Murray's extension. We've got to talk about Olympic group play. We've got to talk about Summer League practice, first media availability, and then Dario Saric signs a deal and gets into a bar fight. All of this and more on the other side. Oh, baby. Excited to be back here, fellas.
Very excited.
What is, everybody? Welcome to the DNVR show.
Let's go. Let's go.
There it is. Monday on Summer League week. Vegas week is calling. 4th of July weekend in the rearview mirror. And what do you know? We have like 2 weeks worth of news to discuss. At least that's what it feels like.
Love that on a Monday.
It is going to be a busy show. Kale, we might not go short today.
When was the last time we went short?
I don't know. It's been years.
Somebody find that out.
To help me out. Brennan Vogt.
What's up, gang? Really excited to be here. Really excited to talk about the deal that's got Nuggets Nation in a chokehold. I can't wait.
What deal is that?
It's the Dario Saric deal.
Oh.
The chokehold was
The chokehold. It was a joke. Yeah.
You didn't think that you're not excited about the move? I think you're incapable of
still
excitement.
I think
over
the
his
joke's
head.
flying. It's flying right over his
Oh, the
head.
chokehold of Dario Saric. You're right. I got it.
Yeah.
Harrison Wind over here. Well, when you get the energy down here, I don't know what to
I
expect.
thought that was a great opener.
Thanks, Harrison.
I really liked it.
Thanks.
All right, Harrison, what do you got for your opener?
I can't outdo that. That's for sure. I don't have anything for my opener.
His
right.
worst night of sleep yet last night, he tells us.
I don't want to believe. I'm not a complainer. I'm not
You're
a
not.
complainer.
You're not a complainer.
I don't
love
make
that.
excuses. I'm not a complainer. Yeah.
But you are you're a little slow these
The
days.
first Nugget Summer League practice was a nice palate cleanser today.
I actually, this is my take. You know, they say the saying "touch grass" or whatever. I touched
Yeah.
water, over the weekend. I feel renewed. It was like a baptism of sorts. I am a new
Nice.
man. Old season, don't even remember what happened.
Camping?
Went camping, man.
There you go.
Went in the lake a little bit.
There you
Got
go.
thrown off of the water tube. Such a fun feeling.
I love it.
When
so
you're just
much.
getting
You're
tumbling
channeling your
across the
any
water.
rafting?
Dude, I'm telling you.
Channeling your inner Jokic. Man.
We're going to start with some couple items of business here. The first one I have, the Jamal Murray contract extension fiasco, if you will. Why hasn't he signed? It's been a thing that Windhorse has been kind of hinting at a little bit. He was the first one doing his, why is it not going on? Today, Ryan Blackburn, who has, reported on some things with Jamal Murray specifically in the past, talks about today, and he did not say this as a source or speculative. He stated it as a fact that a contract has not yet been presented to Jamal Murray. That there's been conversations, but to this point, that has not been the case. That there was one firmly in place. The team has positioned this, a little bit differently, but nonetheless, when you read this for the first time, Harrison, when you read what Blackburn has to say here, it could become a bigger story than anticipated, according to him. What do you think?
I feel like it's going to be something that lingers for the next month or so.
Yeah.
And then, from everything I've been told, after the Olympics, assuming Jamal Murray doesn't, tear his Achilles or something.
Knock on wood, man. Why are we putting this out there?
After the Olympics, I think they'll agree to a max deal. That's what I expect to happen. Once the Olympics wrap up in mid-August, I think Jamal Murray will sign that max extension with the Nuggets. I think that's what both sides are waiting for. And I don't think there's animosity or anything going on. I just think it's the type of deal where the Nuggets want to get through the Olympics and then they want to sign the deal then.
Because in like you just said, in a worst case scenario, it's just you wait and see and make sure you're through the woods before you give someone a max.
It's literally what happened with Michael Porter. They gave it to him before they needed to, and he immediately got hurt and missed an entire
It was
year. Immediately.
You want to talk about sky is falling down, and actually felt like it was.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I have been very well assured that after the Olympics, it will be a max deal, pretty much no questions asked, straightforward, and that's what I'd expect.
Is that a wise thing, Vogt? Like, what do you think about this?
From the Denver perspective?
From the Denver Nuggets perspective, because there's two layers to this, right? There's the, is it smart from the worst case scenario, which you need to protect yourself from if you're an organization. But there's also the part of this, which is, does that piss off your guy?
Yeah, I mean, you always run the risk. I think that, to the earlier point, I think a big part of the Tim Connolly strategy was in a market like Denver, and again now in Minnesota, by the way, it's not just you don't want anyone to walk. You want everyone to be happy and want to be there. And one way to do that is to, pay guys first and then expect the work later. This is a different situation a little bit. It's definitely smart. It's due diligence to wait. Murray does have a list of lower body injuries now. That is just worth considering. And that's obviously, if he's healthy, this max is a no-brainer. But if he's not, it's a tough deal. So I think it makes sense to wait. And I also think Jamal, maybe it might rub him the wrong way, but at the end of the day, it's the maximum amount you're getting, and it's to come back and play with Jokic and stick around. So I think it's wise.
I think also in this new CBA environment, which I hate, it's terrible, but I think teams are a little more cognizant of who they're giving max contracts to and how that affects their future. I don't think teams give out max contracts in the next couple of years as willingly as they did, 3-4 years ago.
Right.
I think teams are tightening the checkbooks a little bit. Like that being said, as I just was saying, like he will get a contract, assuming everything goes well in the Olympics, max deal. It's going to get agreed upon afterwards. But I just think across the league, there's a sense of like, and you saw it with Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, some of these negotiations. It's not like everybody's throwing max contracts out there willingly or as willingly as they used to. It seems like.
I think if you just step back and look at Jamal Murray's arc since the championship, like played 60 games or missed 30 games?
Yeah.
This last year, roughly 30
Pretty
games
much.
this last year, throws something onto the court that he was like so lucky not to have gotten kicked out of a game for. Like Denver could have gotten swept this year if they decide to suspend him game 3,
It's
right?
true. It's really true.
Game 2 plays terrible, is getting absolutely locked up for 2 games at home, and then throws something on the court, which I think rubbed everybody in the org the wrong way. I think that was one that like even the biggest Jamal advocates were like, hey man, making us all look bad in this moment. And then of course you have the injury risk. I don't think this is anything nefarious from Denver's side. I think it's very much a protection thing, but it also does show you they wouldn't do this for Jokic. Jokic could have said, I'm taking the summer and I'm going to do 100-foot cliff diving all summer. And they'd be like, we'll still sign you to a contract, full max
He
contract.
might be doing that. I don't know.
He might actually be
I'm
doing
not
that.
sure.
He's only whitewater rafting this summer in the most dangerous waters. And they would still offer him it. And it just kind of shows you that is probably one thing. And if I were Jamal Murray, I would probably be a little rubbed the wrong way. And if I were Calvin Booth, I would probably say there's no way I'm giving you a max. A guy that just missed a year and a half to an injury, was banged up every other month, had a new injury this summer, and now you're going to go play for Team Canada, which we don't know how the conditions are going to be for you like on those. Is that good? Is that higher likelihood of injury, lower likely? Like we don't know. To me, it makes sense. Denver could not afford to sign Murray to a deal and have him miss a year. Like at that point, you might as well trade Jokic. If Murray somehow hurt himself in a way and was signed to a max deal, you might as well trade Jokic and just say, we can't do it. We're hamstringing ourselves a whole nother season for you. So I think that it kind of makes sense, but I also think it just shows where Jamal Murray could have been versus where he is this summer.
Sure.
And he should have. The Supermax was on the table, and instead we got to we actually can't sign you till we're sure you're safe mode.
Right. Left the door open for doubt. Whereas, like, honestly, if they dominate again this year, he's probably just signed already.
Right. I agree.
So but that kind of, it's really pretty incredible how quickly some of the trust and goodwill burned up there.
That was one of the things, right? That's one of the things we were talking about was the goodwill, because KCP's wife also took to Instagram to inform people that, hey, no, actually, not true. There wasn't a contract offered to him that was of equal value. Like, that's another thing that just feels weird to see.
We talked a lot about the sweet spot of fandom in the years leading up to a Nuggets title, and I think we accurately identified it as something to enjoy because when teams talk about coming back and trying to win again, those later years is where the tension kind of creeps in.
Totally.
And the egos and the relationships. It's not all it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And it just feels a little bit right now like, okay, Bruce leaves, that was expected, but then it goes public maybe some quotes he wouldn't love from Calvin Booth in that story. KCP leaves. Well, we matched it. Did they?
Right.
I don't know if you guys saw that KCP presser in Orlando where one of the things he said was there was a bit of waiting. There was a bit of waiting to see if we would get an offer from Denver. But so it does feel a little bit like one of the core principles in how the Nuggets wanted to operate as an org for years is a bit different now. I think we're kind of in a more ruthless, kind of harsh, but honest place of just like there's less margin for error with these kind of mistakes. And I think they're going to do what it takes to put the sharp, their vision of the sharpest team out there every year.
Do you agree with this sort of shift from Denver?
Oh yeah. I mean, it feels like the we don't skip steps era, the like unbelievable like vibes era is over. And on the one hand, that sucks because that's how the Nuggets were built, and that's something that made them so unique. It felt like in the NBA. The patient approach, not skipping steps, drafting and developing, having this camaraderie and this continuity. But also it's kind of natural, I feel like.
I think so.
Especially after you win a championship and you're in the financial environment that the Nuggets and every team is in right now. There's going to be more roster volatility. There's going to be tough decisions that have to be made. Calvin Booth is a much different GM than Tim Connolly. He has much different strengths and like much different priorities when it comes to building a team. So I just feel like we're seeing that more and more over the last couple of years. So it sucks, but it's also natural in a way.
It's funny how much I just think this all becomes an extension, like a front office and a team's personality becomes an extension of the personality of their leaders. The Nuggets are an extension of Jokic. They're an extension of Michael Malone. They're an extension of the Kroenkes. And they're an extension of Calvin Booth now in these various ways. And you see that. And I think it is true that one of those is, I really think Calvin Booth is the type. We talked about this. I think Cal knew that KCP was gone. Probably knew that a month ago, or a month before free agency began. And I think my read on him is he's probably the personality type that assumes everybody sees the logic of like, well, yeah, just play this out. When most people don't. They don't think that deeply about these things, perhaps even KCP. So it did feel weird. The one counter I will say, though, to that comment, and also from this Murray thing, what did the Vibes era get Denver? It is so interesting to me that the vibey, pay your guys early, everybody's your friend, don't ever trade a guy away.
I think it's a good counter.
And that the championship came at the exact crossroads of the two.
Yes.
It's almost like no one was right.
Yes.
And maybe they just threaded the needle to where those perfectly matched up and that was a championship. But there are lessons to be learned, I think, from this one. And I would say Denver had that family mentality. Everyone's taken care of. And Jeremy Grant came here and bounced as soon as he possibly could. And was like, I want no part of that.
That's a good point.
On the KCP thing, and we've talked about this a little bit, I do think they knew he wasn't coming back well before free agency started. I think they knew the type of offer he was going to get. And I think Calvin Booth is very process-oriented. And the front office made the calculation that they did not want to bring him back for that money.
Yeah.
They didn't feel like it was worth it. This is my read on it. I don't think they thought it was worth it to go into the second apron to bring him back on that type of contract.
Yeah.
I think they knew that's the offer he was going to get. I think they came to that conclusion I just talked about. And I think they accepted it and moved on and pivoted and were like, all right, we're going to go get two other guys now to fill out the rotation. I just think that's how it went. And so, like, I believe KCP when he says that.
Any final thoughts on this?
No, just that I think Wynn's right, that it's maybe more of a life cycle thing than error, right, on someone's part or fault.
Right.
But I think you nailed it. I think it culminated in that year where the Nuggets, A, had the right roster because of some headstrong
By the way,
moves.
the main thing.
What?
That's the main thing. You're like A, and it's like A is 95% of it.
That's why I'm leading with it. But it also did feel like covering the team that year, it felt like the culmination of all those kind of not necessarily tangible things we had talked about over the years. It did feel like it all peaked that year, and it all came together. Going forward, it's going to have to be about just getting everything right on the court and getting all of these decisions right. But it did feel like it was a fun culmination in that 1 year.
Can we do a quick palate cleanser before we take a break?
Yeah.
Kale, will you pull up the Team USA practice highlight clip I have? I sent you. Can you pull this up here? You guys see this? Team USA is at the UNLV right now practicing, getting ready for it. Joel Embiid going up against college players, drawing fouls in a scrimmage, and he gets the call. Look how pissed everyone is.
Have you heard the audio of this?
There's nothing funnier than a guy drawing a foul as an all-star of all-star teams. Everybody out there is the best players in America, and he's drawing fouls against a college kid.
He wanted that call bad too. He
was
didn't get
like,
it.
what?
Yeah.
It's the sound.
Almost didn't get it.
There's no crowd. It's just basketball people in there, and everyone goes, "Oh!"
Is this worse than the Devin Booker we don't double team and pick up?
It's not worse.
It's kind of in the same territory, right?
It you know what? It kind of is, because it's so indicative of who those people, both of those
just
guys
straight
are.
loser behavior.
It does tell you something.
It is hilarious to think that you can't even just work on not doing that in that
Adam,
setting.
we're working on our games.
We're working on our game.
We're
It
working
is.
on our games.
And Joel's like, "This is my game, brother. Then what do you think I'm doing?"
right. No, he's working on his game. I'm not kidding.
What a loser. All right, let's take a break. On the other side.
I'm glad we did that.
Dario Saric. We did an emergency pod, but he is now a Denver Nugget. Also, he's probably hurting at the moment. We're going to talk about that on the other side. Stay tuned.
Guys, we are so excited to launch our new partnership with our friends at UC Health. UC Health, they know how important mental health is. They encourage Coloradans to live their healthiest lives through statewide incentives or initiatives that include taking care of your mental health. They want you to live like there is a tomorrow. Mental health, obviously, very important to take care of, whether it's your personal life, your friendships, your relationships, your work. It's important to take care of yourself, your family, and your friends. UC Health, they're obviously ingrained in the Colorado community. They sponsor a lot of different teams. We're really happy they're on board with us. But take care of your mental health today. That's what UC Health wants to remind you of. So if you want to learn more about David's story, and David Schlicht is a Colorado teenager who loves being active outdoors. He's a former UCL Health patient, and his story is a prime example of taking care of mental health and living like there is tomorrow. He was an Olympic hopeful whose kind of career took a turn when he lost his leg after a ski training accident. But, UC Health has really helped him get back mentally, physically to the level he was at before that injury. So if you want to learn more about that and see more inspiring patient stories from UC Health, uchealth.org/tomorrow to learn what it means to live like there is a tomorrow.
If you want to learn what it's like to be behind the wheel of a Toyota, spoiler alert, it whips. You can, because trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA for generations. Toyota has built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering those off-road trails or hauling the weight of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you, like the all-new 2024 Tacoma and the return of the iconic 2024 Land Cruiser. Altogether, Toyota offers 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, like the Epic 4Runner. So many reasons you might want one of these vehicles in Colorado, because there are so many wonderful ways you can enjoy the outdoors of Colorado. Do yourself a favor. Visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is a proud partner of the Denver Nuggets. It's also the official vehicle of DNVR.
All right, we are back, segment 2. So the big news over the weekend, Dario Saric, the Nuggets scratch their itch at backup center and bring in Dario Saric. Eric and I did the weirdest emergency show. Did you guys see it?
I saw you were in your car.
I was in my car.
Your Toyota.
It was actually fun to get away, do a little show from the car for once in the
Toyota lounge.
So it says the Toyota lounge. Somehow Eric's Wi-Fi didn't work, so it kind of became a solo emergency pod. But, we shared some initial thoughts. I will say that, I get back from vacation last night, and what do? I hop on old Synergy, and I start watching Dario Saric highlights because I wanted really taking his game. My number one note, the guy can pass, man.
Yeah.
That's his, when we talk about skills that he is going to bring, I think number one of the things Denver's going to need is he's a really good passer. And if given the opportunity, I actually think he is a good fulcrum. The biggest question for me now is going to be, how much is he going to get to be the fulcrum? But to me, that's what he brings to the table more than anything else. Passing and facilitating, being the hub of an offense.
Yeah. I love the signing. I think it makes a ton of sense if you just think about what the Nuggets need to change the most from last season. They needed more, reliable veterans that Michael Malone trusted off the bench. They needed more threats on the offensive end of the floor, particularly off the bench, I thought. And like Dario Saric, who I think can, back up Nikola Jokic at center. He can play some 4 as well. He really fits this team well. And the passing, like you said, is the number one thing where I feel like he can really open things up for the Nuggets second unit. Mm-hmm. I agree, man. He can be the fulcrum of some things that the Nuggets do offensively. I just envision like how he can free up Julian Strawther for 3-pointers. I envision how he can hit Peyton Watson on cuts to the rim. He's a very gifted passer. He's a smart, high IQ player. He can really open up the floor. The biggest thing for me, and he can shoot the 3 too. He's the best like offensive option and just well-rounded player the Nuggets have had at center in the Jokic era, I think. But the biggest question for me is how much is Michael Malone and the Nuggets going to lean into that? Because the last couple years, it doesn't feel like they've really tried on offense with the bench. It kind of feels like they've just thrown guys out there and been like, all right, Jamal, yeah, Reggie, whatever. Like, they're going to really have to have a philosophical shift offensively when it comes to the second unit if they want to center things around Dario Saric at all.
Right.
So that's the biggest question for me. If they want to do that, I feel like there's a ton of upside there, but they've got to want to do it.
There were a couple of bright spots with the bench in the last couple of years when Vlatko was healthy.
That's true, actually.
One of the things we liked was just a little bit of playmaking. That the could extend a play, could find an open guy. Again, he's no one's floor general, Vlatko. But there were just some moments where we liked that opened some things up. So I thought about that as I thought about this potential pairing, which, is still a big if. But if Vlatko plays alongside Saric, maybe there's just, you can get a little more to it than like one action and we're screwed. Like one pick and roll, one pick and pop, and if it's covered, we don't really know what to do next. And it might be nice to have, whether it's stuff they've worked on and drawn up, or just the innovative playmaking of like finding a cutter, just encouraging some semblance of offense beyond the point guard calling for a screen. So the passing to me is what makes it encouraging. Obviously, we're talking about a small look here. We're talking about a smaller front court with Jokic sitting.
It's not that small, though.
I'm just saying he's not a skyscraper. I mean, he's a relatively small 5.
Yeah.
But that's...
But I mean, I just think it's actually, he's an average backup 5, though, is my point.
Yeah, sure. But I think you can get...
There are some teams that are big, though.
If you find a switchable scheme and you can execute, that's fine. He can shoot a little bit. Honestly, for a backup 5, he can. It's not a knockdown shooter, but 37% from 3 last year, 36% career shooter. So
and willing, by the way, takes a decent amount.
Yeah, so I'm just hopeful, guys, that it opens some things up off the bench that feels a little more like there's room for everyone to breathe.
The big question is going to be how much do you really trust him and play through him? And I agree with you. That is the big question. But he's so good. I love the comp to Vlatko Čančar. The difference is he's way better.
Agreed.
He's just better at everything.
Yeah, he's just better at
Way
it.
better.
Honestly, all of Vlatko's skills, he's just at a higher level. And some of the passes, I put this on Twitter because I was going through Synergy and looking at his passes just from last week's qualifiers, of which they came up 1 win short. They fell to Greece in the qualifying game. But he was phenomenal in the qualifier event. And he had some passes that you watch and you go, that's a Jokic pass. Catching it on the short roll, throwing a look away pass to the opposite corner that like skips over the defense. Those aren't simple passes.
Doubled in the post, finds the shooter on the other side of the court.
Right. And not even just that, knows, I'm in the post and it's not open, but if I dribble this way, the double has to extend further. Yep. So like setting the floor and manipulating the defense.
He's smart enough to read it like that.
And so he does some stuff. The thing for me is Saric is one of these guys that if you play to his strengths, he's really good. If you don't, and you try to count on it, if you turn him into a corner shooter or a pick and pop shooter, again, that should be part of his game. But if it becomes that's how we use him, then I think he's actually very underwhelming at that. And it makes me, when I keep bringing up, I know everybody hates this, but when I bring up Zeke Naji and say, I don't think he's as bad as he has been in Denver. Now, Zeke Naji was not a veteran. He was a young guy, and like they have to earn their stripes even more than most. And Zeke did some things to dig his own grave, so to speak. But there is a part of me that goes, I'm not convinced he's not going to just be in the corner.
Yeah.
Especially if you bring in a player like a Russell Westbrook. Well, Westbrook's the fulcrum. Where Saric fit into that, I'm not so sure.
Right. And that's why it's going to be on the coaching staff, I think, to really form some semblance of an identity with the second unit this year. Because if they just do the same thing they've done the last couple of years, the bench is going to look bad again, probably.
Yeah.
Like, I feel pretty confident, even though they have Saric, who's an upgrade, even though I think they're getting Westbrook, who's an upgrade over Reggie Jackson. If they don't try to have an offense, I still think it's going to look like shit.
Right. I agree.
Right.
Yep.
There has to be some focused effort and game planning and, like I said, a shift in how the Nuggets operate when Nikola Jokic is off the floor.
Yep.
Or else no matter who they bring in, it's going to look as chaotic as it's looked in the years past.
I think it's one of the weightier criticisms of this coaching staff over the years as it's changed or evolved is just their inability to figure that out.
Yeah.
But
honestly, even Jeremy Grant, like when he came in here, it was almost like he was put in this box of doing some, and then obviously with Detroit, you're like, oh, he can do some more stuff.
But the bench stuff just gets so, go play hard on defense and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Which feels, sometimes you're like, have they been coached? But I do think that in some ways, and it's still a Nuggets problem, but I think in some ways it's a product of the modern practice schedule or lack thereof. I really don't think other teams have figured this out and put competent benches out there. I'm not. But I do think it's like they barely practice, and when they do get together, it's the first unit like walkthrough stuff. They're not spending time on the second unit figuring their thing out, but perhaps they should.
Well, that's why one of my things is, with Hartenstein going to Oklahoma City, I will lay down an enormous bet that he has a great year there. And the reason is because
everybody looks good there.
Well, because I think Mark Dagnott, that's how he starts his coaching. Is he goes, what does he do? How do we set him up? How does that fit into what we're doing? And now we're going to augment that skill. And I think Saric is a similar guy. The difference is the gap between him being used right and wrong is probably wider than it is for most players. Some players are easier just to plug into a spot and they just, all right, I don't need anything. I just stand in my corner and I do this. He's not one of those guys. I will say, so passing and facilitating, number one thing he brings. I think shooting from the center position is a real thing. Even though he's not a great shooter, I think it's the second most valuable thing just because Denver doesn't have a lot of it, and he's another guy that you can count on. When he takes a three, I don't think you're going to groan. Number three to me is actually ISO scoring, and a lot of this is out of post-ups. But if you think about right now, when you were talking about, okay, getting the ball popping, using him as a fulcrum, that's hard to do, and it does take a commitment. But at least you can post him up and understand that he has something there. Now, he's not a great post-up player against his own man, but he's really good. One of the things that's good about him is he kind of moves like a guard offensively, but is big like a power forward. And so when you run pick and roll and teams just want to switch that, he's a guy that can get a lot of switches and operate out of drawing the double team. And so ISO scoring to me is another thing that Denver's bench specifically really needs that he has.
He's a very good offensive player. And my read on how Calvin Booth approached the Saric thing and Russell Westbrook is I feel like there's been some frustration within the Nuggets about not being better offensively as a team. I think the highest they finished in offense in the Jokic era, like I don't even know if they've been top 3 for a season in offensive rating in the Jokic era. And like you look at that, like you have Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, Michael. How are you not like the best offense in the league for a year? And the reason is because they can't score without Nikola Jokic on the floor.
Right.
They've never been able to. So I think Calvin Booth kind of went into this offseason being like, all right, if we're losing KCP, we're going to have some more offensive juice off the bench. And we've also talked about, will Michael Malone stagger more lineups this season? Will he change up his rotations at all? Maybe he will.
Yeah.
But I do think Calvin Booth is kind of baked in, all right, maybe even if he doesn't, we're still going to have more offensive juice with the Westbrook, with the Saric. So I just think getting more dangerous offensively with Jokic off the court was a priority for the Nuggets, and I feel like they've addressed it and are on their way to addressing it further.
I think the other thing I'm thinking about with Saric is the Westbrook piece of this is so weird because now you start to think about what is the best lineups for him. Pickett is a guy that is really good at getting the ball on the short roll to his guy. He's a good passer. He can be a connective passer. Vlatko can pass. Saric can pass. I start to look at it and I go, you could put some combos together where there's 3 guys on the court at all times that are above average facilitators or just ball movers or just connectors. Right. No elite player. Well, you get Russ in there. Russ is so much more of a everything happens through him, and when he's throwing a pass, you shoot it because the possession ends right then and there. And that's where I sit here and think if Westbrook is on the move, the Saric piece of this becomes a little bit more volatile to me. Even though I think it'd be a net positive in terms of adding Russ, it's a piece where I'd go, I don't know what those two guys look like together.
Yeah, I don't know either, man. I mean, Russell Westbrook. It could be a disaster. It could be good.
Yeah.
But either way, it's going to be interesting. That's kind of where I'm at on it.
It's definitely going to contribute in some ways to that kind of rough around the edges, full steam ahead approach for the second unit we were just talking about. Like,
right.
Kind of, it's a little sloppy, but you're playing hard and you're trying to make something happen, which does feel like a little bit of a zag from what you were just talking about, which is the potential accumulative, like kind of playmaking and
the
versatility.
Beautiful game.
So yeah. Kind of, Russ brings some stuff that Denver needs. That's probably not it. So that is an interesting thing to consider.
Here's 2 more questions on this topic. Can the Nuggets play? Actually, let's take a break. Because we're a little long here. Let's take a break. On the other side, I have 1 more or 2 more questions on Saric before we move on to practice notes from Summer League. We talked to Julian Strawther today. We also talked to DaRon Holmes today and Summer League head coach, Coach Munz. We'll talk about that on the other side.
Guys, it is Miller time here at DNVR
right now?
on the DNVR Nuggets podcast. Yeah, right now. You haven't checked the time?
No,
right
okay.
now.
I had a lot of Millers over the weekend.
Oh, I bet.
A lot's changed over the years. One thing that hasn't, the great taste of Miller Lite.
A boat Miller Lite is a top 3 Miller Lite.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
Especially while you're driving.
We should draft those Miller Lights. The great taste of Miller Lite has not changed. It was the original light beer. To this day, it's still the best light beer. A lot of those light beers out there, they taste terrible. They don't taste like beer. Miller Lite has more of the taste that you want and less of the stuff that you don't. They keep it simple, undebatable quality, great taste, only 96 calories. It's the beer that strips away everything you don't need and holds on to what matters most. A light beer that tastes like beer, less filling, only 96 calories. The original light beer since 1975. Perfect for any occasion, including on a boat. Times change, but you can always enjoy the great taste of Miller Lite. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/DNVR, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. A grocery store, your local liquor store, they've got Miller Lite. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces.
Scenario for you, you're out on a pontoon boat. Let's call it Grand Lake. Let's call it Grand Lake.
Okay.
You're enjoying a Miller, and you realize there's a Nuggets game later that night. You haven't got your bets in yet. You know what you can do? Just pull out the Bet365 app.
Right
It's
on the
never
lake.
Ordinary. Right. Well, the lake's in Colorado.
Wow.
And you have service. Wherever you've got your phone, wherever you've got your app,
That water is so cold.
you've got skin in the game. I know, but it's such a great pontoon spot.
It is.
It is so... I'm about to go right now after this show's over. I bet
There's
365.
Osprey. You ever see the Osprey that are all over?
I haven't
lot of
gone with
moose
you
as well.
yet, so that's...
I'll show them to you because you'll catch them diving. That little island right there, Shadow Mountain Reservoir. There's like 300 Osprey that live there.
Bro, I'd love to go to Grand Lake with you.
Dude, let's do it. Can we do it? Honestly, I want to go to
100%.
Grand
Yeah,
Lake.
let's go. I love it.
Hell yeah.
In the meantime,
We're going to Grand
you
Lake.
can place your bets at Bet365 where they don't do ordinary. Every sport should be epic. A couple of options for you right now. If you download the app, you sign up using code DNVR365. Deposit $10. Choose between a bet and get offer or first bet safety offer. They also have fun things like NBA early payout offers. So once that season comes back around, you can win your bet if your team goes up by 20, even if they lose the game. How sweet is that?
It's not that sweet, to be honest. It's sweet for you. It's a small consolation if your team blows a 20-point lead.
If it's
I'm
in
not
game
gonna
7,
lie.
it's not going to help. But, it's there. It's there for you. So you have to be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
By the way, Nuggets odds still really good. Still really good to win the West. Just saying it out there.
Can I say
In fact,
another,
they've
another
improved.
thing on the Westbrook front?
Please.
So he's obviously on the Clippers. You know, he's not a free agent yet. I still expect. Sorry.
Easy for you to say.
I still expect Russell Westbrook to be a Nugget, but it's kind of in the Clippers' hands right now. The ball's in their court. They're trying to trade him. I think he's made it known he wants to come to Denver. So I think the Clippers either buy him out or he gets traded and then that team buys him out. But either way, I think he ends up signing with the Nuggets on a minimum. I still think that's the plan.
It's always been the thought there. The next question I have here, can he play, Dario Saric that is, can he play alongside Nikola Jokic?
Sure.
Defensively, it'd be a pretty horrible front court.
That's a good point. But I mean, like, could you put together a lineup with those two out there? Yeah, I think you could. I think it's, I think he could probably play a little hybrid 4 there and got enough floor spacing, got enough playmaking. I mean, I don't know if it's plan A, but could you? Could you build a lineup with those next to each other? Sure. I think so.
Yeah, I think so. I think everybody can play with Jokic.
That's a good point, Harrison.
We shouldn't make a list of guys who can't.
But is it a good
Facu and
when I say this, obviously I'm saying, like, do you think that's part of the equation?
Shaq
There
Harrison.
are guys, Zeke Naji's one of them, never plays with Jokic. And it's not many guys, but it usually is the center, you know. But is he going to be that? Is he just not going to really, he'll be the one guy that plays the least minutes with Jokic?
And it's interesting,
That's a good
man. I
question.
don't know. I view him as the backup 5. If you talk to people that watched him a lot with the Warriors last year, they said he sucked at backup 5. You know, obviously a much different situation, Golden State to Denver. But I feel like backup 5 is where the Nuggets envision him. Could he play some 4? Sure. Like, could he and Aaron Gordon be on the court together? And maybe Gordon play some 5 and he... I don't know. I feel like he'll play most of his minutes without Jokic.
Yeah, I would agree.
But probably a little more with him than Zeke Naji did,
Okay.
if I had to guess.
I would be intrigued by a lineup that just features him. I mean, one of the things we're thinking about is you want to give some shooting to the non-Jokic minutes because they're going to be very short on shooting. Dario Saric is kind of a stretch 4. You know, if he's playing 4, he's not a great shooter. But if you wanted to, like, we want to play Mike at the 4 in the bench unit minutes,
Right,
We
right.
got to take him off. All right, maybe Saric can stretch the court there. I don't know. The other question I had was, who is the best front court pairing for him? So we talked a little bit about Vlatko, who, by the way, is back on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
So he is back with the team, despite looking, I would say, 80% at
A little rusty.
a little rusty. He looked a little stiff, I would say, which is honestly a storyline. Like, it'll probably take him the next 3 months to be ready to go.
That's why I'm really glad he got to do this, actually.
Yeah.
Just to burn. It's not even about, like, conditioning.
You
'cause
know what?
it's-
This is a great take.
But just to get a little bit of the rust off, because you're going to have some coming back
Yeah.
from that injury. And also, Vlatko, not a guy logging a lot of minutes anyway. So just to get out there and get playing, I think, so that we don't have to watch this in preseason and freak out necessarily. You know, look, maybe he just doesn't have a good year. But yeah, get the rust off early. I'm glad he got some reps.
But
Front court pairings. So kind of walk me through. Let's talk about the different looks. So with Vlatko, great passing, high IQ, good spacing, I think, even though neither of them are great shooters. Defensive, not a lot of rim protection, but I do think somewhat switchable and long. What else is that lineup strengths and weaknesses?
Interchangeable. You know, those guys, like we were just saying, kind of the same. You can switch them 4 to 5, 5 to 4 offensively, defensively. A lot of good passing. A lot of high IQ play with those two.
Yeah. DaRon Holmes.
Shooting.
Both guys.
Both guys can shoot the 3. Both guys can operate out of the post.
Yeah.
DaRon Holmes and Saric, kind of similar.
Are they?
Are they not?
How? How so?
Both stretch 4s.
Above the rim finishers, just.
I mean, both stretch 4s. Both, can operate out of the post. I feel like same kind of level athlete, a little bit with both those guys.
There's no way they're the same level athlete.
Saric when he was a rookie.
Okay. All right. DaRon Holmes, I know the 27-inch vertical is not that impressive, but he does play. It's like Jeff Green looked more athletic than Aaron Gordon because he just somehow uses his athleticism so well. DaRon Holmes is an athlete, even if the measurables aren't crazy.
Yeah. But those guys seem like there's more overlap than Char and Saric.
I kind of like that fit, even though DaRon Holmes at this moment is more of a complete mystery box than anything.
That's the thing, is we just don't know. But hypothetically speaking, yeah, man, I think they're both guys that you could turn to within the flow of a possession and say, let's set a screen here, and they could roll or pop.
Yeah.
And, and some of what Wind is getting at is Holmes is a little tertiary playmaking in there from a big, He's got
right.
He's a guy who can make something happen. So that's an intriguing one. We already talked about it. I know I am a little curious about Vlatko and Saric together. I think that one intrigues me a lot. Holmes, I'll just sort of kind of wait until we've seen him play a bit before I slot him in.
I think Holmes and Zeke Naji are more similar in a lot of ways in that both guys slotting into a power forward role, not a center role, and both guys slotting into a lower usage role. Now, for Holmes, you hope he can grow into more of a higher usage role. But Holmes, I think, is going to walk into the Nuggets as a hustle guy that doesn't have any plays called for him, and you just got to rebound, and you got to cut, and you got to defend, and you got to do a bunch of stuff. Constant energy. And I think Zeke, to be honest with you, that's his wheelhouse. If he's the guy, even if it's not he's the go-to guy, if he just gets minutes there, I actually think it puts him in something of a comfort zone. Like, you're not even the screener in screen and roll. Right. Just play the dunker, play the corner. And that might actually be better for him. And then just rebound and hustle and guard, and you can put more of your energy there.
Yeah. Overall, though, I think I have cooled a little bit on DaRon Holmes can fight for playing time at the start of next season.
I agree. I was always here. So raw, so young, and Denver has so many young players.
I feel like he was pretty NBA ready in terms of the guys he was drafted around, but especially with Saric here now, I just can't really see him in the rotation day one.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Those are my questions there. Let's move on now, though, because I'm very intrigued.
I will say, though, real quick.
I had one more thing, too. Go.
What if it's none of those guys in Saric?
DeAndre Jordan?
No. What if
Peyton Watson?
Peyton Watson and Saric and Russell Westbrook and Julian Strawther? Because I think that is actually the most likely four guys to play off the bench.
Russ, Strawther, Peyton,
Saric. It's a 9-man rotation, right?
Oh, and then Jamal Murray.
And then let's say Jamal with them.
The Nuggets like to run a 9-man rotation.
Or, I think it's on the board.
You're either going Strawther or another big, and I feel like Strawther probably makes a little more sense.
Well, one thing that really helps on that I forgot to bring up is that Saric is a really good rebounder. It's the other skill that he is bringing. He actually rebounds better, statistically, career-wise, than Aaron Gordon. So you don't think of Aaron Gordon being a rebounding liability. You think he's pretty good at it. Saric is actually significantly better. I think a 12% defensive rebound rate across his career for Aaron Gordon, 20% defensive rebound rate for Dario Saric. Slightly worse offensive rebounder, like 1 percentage point, not really different, but 8 percentage points higher as a defensive rebounder. It is a strength of his. And when you start talking about Peyton Watson at the 4, for all of Peyton Watson's strengths, rebounding is one that he hasn't had. And maybe that does open up the ability to play that kind of combo.
Yeah, and I just think Watson and Saric is a great 2-man combo, too. Watson cutting to the rim, flying around out there, and Saric as, the guy who can draw doubles and make stuff happen.
The only thing I don't love about that one is Peyton Watson, part of his value is that he's a really long 3. Part of Julian Strawther's value is that he's a really long 2. When you move both of those guys down a spot, it can be a little bit strange. But, who knows? Maybe the stagger is more of a Christian. Maybe the stagger is more of a Michael Porter something.
Porter at the 4 kind of sounds fun.
Porter at the 4 maybe is where you go with this. So maybe the stagger is completely different, and it's just more blended lineups. All right, let's talk about Summer League here. Walk us through it, man. Summer League. We talked to Julian Strawther today.
Nuggets had their first Summer League practice today. Talked to Strawther and DaRon Holmes and Summer League head coach Andrew Munson, who looks just like our DNVR Broncos reporter Henry Chisholm.
He really does.
That's going to come up a lot this summer.
Yep.
I don't think so.
Kale, can you get up a side-by-side picture? Thank you.
Oh, my God.
They look exactly the same. They got to be related.
Same colored hair is what it is.
The beard?
The beard.
The beard is the
they
same
look like
kind.
cousins, at least.
They got to be related. I mean, we got to get to the bottom of this. But I feel like Julian Strawther is clearly, to me, the biggest storyline at Summer League. How has his game grown? Is he ready for the rotation? Is he still just a shooter? Has his shot improved? And has he developed anything off the dribble as well? And he spoke to that today he says that a big focus for him at Summer League in Vegas is, and he said this, quote, exploring his game
I know.
the dribble. And I cringed a little.
Yeah, that was tough. That was a tough line.
I feel like that is going to be his focus. Obviously, shooting the ball well, but I feel like the Nuggets want to put the ball in his hands. I feel like he has been working on his playmaking. That's been a priority for him, since the season ended. Can he create anything out of the pick and roll? Can he do some stuff off the dribble? Can he, get others going with his passing too? So really everything around Julian Strawther's game to me is the number one thing I'm watching for. And it feels like he is very conscious of wanting to become a better playmaker.
I think we're going to see a very aggressive Julian in this summer league, and I don't know how that's going to go. Like, it is funny that you talk about exploring your game. It does call back to Zeke Naji's second year. That was an absolute disaster. The one thing is, and I asked Coach Munson about this, both him and Hunter Tyson are really good coming off pin downs and off ball movement.
Yeah.
And I asked him, like, hey, do you expect there'll be more of that in the summer league team than there is typically with the Nuggets? And he said yes. He said, yeah, that actually is going to be a point of emphasis, is getting those two guys running off of screens. Now, we'll see if it actually happens. But to me, when you say Julian exploring his game, I actually think that is as important as, like, oh, are you dribbling now and running pick and roll? Like, no, see what he looks like catching and firing off of the Steph Curry. Run him like Steph off of a bunch of actions.
Sure, especially if you have a playmaking point guard in Jalen Pickett, who you would like to think is at least comfortable in a summer league environment doing that. So I think that's worth experimenting with, because I know that Michael Malone is very happy to run stuff for Julian Strawther. I think they look at him as a guy who you can not just put out there, but draw up plays for. And so he has a chance to become a real weapon for this team this year off the bench. And I think I don't want to say it's a big summer league for Julian, but it's a big year for Julian. And it starts at summer league. One last note on him, though, for me, I love how much Julian loves to play basketball. Remember they had the conversation about sending him down to the G League to kick the rust off after the injury, and he was like, he gave an answer about how he's always game for that. He's always down to go and work on his game and get the reps in. And I know he's not above summer league, but I just feel like he's going enthusiastically.
100%. That was his first thing. He was pumped about it. He's like, I can't wait. I've been waiting for this since the moment the season ended.
This guy loves to hoop, and I love that about him.
Yeah, and I imagine it's going to be a fun summer league for him, like number one guy,
Yeah.
He also gave a shout out to Hunter Tyson, which I love, because both Munson and Julian Strawther both gave a shout out, just saying that guy is an insane shooter.
I think Strawther said he's the best shooter he's ever been around.
I think he said one of, but might have said best, but definitely was talking about him as if he's crazy. Like Hunter Tyson, we keep wondering, like, what is his elite skill? He shot really well his senior year of college, but it wasn't clear if he'd be. The fact that his reputation amongst his peers is like Julian's a great shooter, and he was talking about him as if he's a better shooter almost.
No, yeah,
Right.
The talk is like Hunter Tyson is an incredible shooter right now.
Well, Denver needs shooting. So part of me goes like, if we were starting the Hunter Tyson plays minutes in 2025 campaign, you would start with Denver's desperate for shooting, and Hunter Tyson, according to his peers, is as good a shooter as anyone in the gym.
Might be Larry Bird, too.
I feel like Hunter Tyson being really good would be very fun. This would be very good for everything.
We didn't even go over him as an option at the 4.
Yeah,
I know.
Don't know how much room there is for that to happen.
They would definitely be the Hunters if that
Oh my
happened.
God. But eventually, whether it's this year or not, the idea of that guy coming in and just hitting 4 threes in a game, I feel like there are some really, really, there's high potential for the vibes with Hunter Tyson.
Yeah. So I just thought that was very noteworthy. All right, what else? We talked to DaRon Holmes.
Yeah, DaRon Holmes. When you're a rookie coming into the NBA, I feel like there's got to be so much thrown at you very quickly. Like play calls, terminology, a lot of it's completely different than what you do in college. And so I feel like DaRon Holmes still trying to like get his bearings on, everything the Nuggets are trying to do, and that's completely natural for a rookie. But you get the sense that he loves to compete and he loves just playing basketball, kind of like you were just saying with Julian Strawther. Like he is in his element when he's just out there playing. And so I feel like he's really pumped for Summer League. He kind of can't wait to get out there and just play, to put on a Nuggets jersey and play. And I'm excited to watch him, man. I think he's going to be playing the 4, playing power forward mostly on this Summer League team. They got PJ Hall, who they signed on a 2-way contract, who's going to start at center, and then Holmes at the 4 next to Tyson, Strawther, and Pickett. And I feel like the Nuggets are going to focus their offense. Part of it's going to be Strawther, Tyson coming off screens, creating a little bit, and then next it's going to be Holmes, I got to think. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
He's your number 2.
He's, my number 2 kind of storyline, I'd say.
Julian Strawther was also asked about him, and he said that his motor is insane, which is, to me, his number 1 trait, as a player. It's going to be the thing that gets him on the court for sure early on in his career. But the fact that after just one practice, it's already oh my God, yeah, that guy just plays with a crazy motor. He does everything at a hard level. And I'm with you. He is like a guy like Strawther, who I just think loves hoop. And one of the things I said about him as a scout was he does everything with the same energy. He does the dirty work just as hard as he does everything else. But today, talking to him, it sounds like it's because he loves the dirty work.
Yeah.
I think he has a passion for the ugly parts of the game, which is a great trait to have.
I love that he has mentioned Aaron Gordon, because I think this is like the perfect role model for him.
I think his ears are to the ground, though. I think he has an ear to the ground.
I think that's true.
I think these youngsters are used to seeing what people say online.
Yeah, some basic research. All right, who are their starters? Okay, those are my favorite guys. But no, I think this is a good one, man. Like, embrace that stuff here in Denver. Carve out a role for yourself real quick if you do, to be honest.
I'm telling you, this is the job I want. I want to go tell him, like, hey, just say LaFonso Ellis is one of your favorites.
I'm telling you, just a general internet consultancy.
I never skipped steps in my career. Never have.
Dude, we'd be so good at telling people what to and not to say.
Easy.
Oh,
We're so
man.
easy.
All right, the last guy to talk about today. I think we're going to have to push the Olympic stuff to tomorrow, which is good because we got days.
The headline in the thumbnail.
We might have to update that.
We'll do a little fix it in post.
We'll fix it in post. But you know what? We went long today. Who would have guessed? The last one here is Coach Munson, Andrew Munson. We joked that he looked like he was like the youngest coach in NBA history.
Look at this.
I mean, dude, you're pointing at here his white guys with beards. Like, they're kind of, that's a general
but they're
look.
the same. They're the
It's the same color. It's the same color
the
beard.
same kind of white guy beard. You can't deny it.
I can't deny that. You are right. To me, that's where the comparisons end here. But all right, maybe the chat disagrees.
We did a whole draft guide with comps based off things like hair and
That's
beards.
so true. That's actually great. You know what? Checkmate. All right, walk us through here. Munson.
Andrew Munson. I don't even know how old he is. I think he's younger than me. Young guy.
Dude, it's a weird moment when that you're already now amongst the 400 NBA players. You're probably in the oldest 100.
Oh, dude, totally.
It happens, man.
I'm absolutely washed.
Kale, you're almost at the 50% mark, dude. I'm telling you.
But yeah, young guy who's been on Michael Malone's staff for a while. He's been here for at least 4 or 5 years, I think, maybe longer. But he's been around for a while. Second row assistant. I think his title was actually special assistant to Michael Malone.
Yeah.
But he's an assistant coach. Does a little bit of everything. I think, a little player development, a lot of scheming with the coaching staff as well. And I'm excited to see what he can do because I don't really know much about him. I don't think he's really been a part of another organization other than the Nuggets. So he's kind of come up with this team and this staff. But I'm excited to see what he's got in his bag. And the highlight from him today was that apparently he called a rage timeout. And everybody loved it. He's 30, so he is younger than me.
So my favorite part of that was a great follow-up by Bennett Durando of the Post. He said, "Did you get a rush?" And he's big smile. He's like, "It kind of felt good."
Yeah.
It's so funny, man. It's so funny. He will be an interesting character, coaching the Nuggets. Everyone, they go through. They just keep going through the list. Everybody kind of gets a crack at it, and it will be kind of interesting to see the youngest of the Nuggets coaches now.
I love
at the helm.
And it's not about him. Best of luck to Munson, but I love kind of tracking. Day one, everyone's very excited to be the head coach of the Summer League team. And then by halfway through game 2, that job is rough.
Yeah.
Remember the Jordy Fernandez years?
Jordy's the one,
All
man.
about high vibes. We were so excited. And Jordy, who's a very good coach.
He's
well
now a
respected.
Head coach and
the Nets.
Team Canada as well, right? This guy, this guy's got plenty going on. Halfway through game one, he was like, "Oh shit!"
You
What-
get in that gym at Cox Pavilion. It's hot in there. It's
Well,
really
yeah.
loud.
No, what it was, if you recall, because I think they dropped game one, and then game two they had like a 20-0 run they gave up.
Yeah.
and it was like looking at him on the sideline as
He's
he was
like,
just like, "There is nowhere to hide right now." Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, man, this stuff. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny
It
when
is
the
kinda
coaches
funny.
get it. But again, him talking about the emphasis, I thought was kind of neat because those emphasis not necessarily coming from him; it's coming from the organization and
Yeah.
getting Julian into some playmaking. It'll be neat to kind of see how the team goes about that. You said so. Julian and then DaRon Holmes was 1-2 for you. Is that the same for you? Is that the same 1-2?
Maybe. I mean, Pickett, I think, sneaks into this conversation in theory.
Pickett was higher for me until we
Westbrook.
learned that they're bringing in another point guard to play over him.
Right. That's a
The
very.
stakes feel like they lowered for him a little bit.
It's a very good counter. Like, how well could he possibly play at Summer League where that conversation even changes?
At the same time, maybe Westbrook is signed by game one. Maybe he's not.
Sure.
So there's always a
No, I
world
mean,
where it's like,
it-
are we sure that's the plan?
In Pickett's shoes, this is still a big. I don't even want to say opportunity. It's like it just has to go well. He has, I think, to keep himself afloat here in Denver. And so I think there's some pressure on him, some eyes on him. The thing about Pickett is, for as much as he's been talked about, he didn't play. So it's not even like
People hate him, and I'm telling you on weird things because he was pretty good in the G League. He had some really good games.
that's what I mean. Like, we actually don't really know yet how comfortable he would look in this environment per se. How exciting it'll be to watch him.
Got no aura, I think, is what it is.
That's part of it, but that is part of it. But you know what? Just be good at backup point guard. That's plenty fine for me.
Yeah.
I think look at Hunter Tyson though. Hunter Tyson shooting the leather off the ball.
I mean, it's going to be tough for him to top last year's Summer League performance.
but what if he does it again? And then it's like, you know what? Why is this guy not playing?
D-line's in Dallas right now. Like, this Summer League team is going to be amazing.
Yeah. I got one more thing to say on the offseason when we're done with Summer League.
Go for
Or we're
it.
done. I feel like there's been a lot of rushing to panic about this Nuggets offseason.
course.
And look, losing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a huge loss. That sucks. That's rough. It's going to be a big hole for the Nuggets to fill. But I feel like ever since then, people have been rushing to panic about everything for the Nuggets right now. Oh my God, they didn't sign anybody throughout the first couple of days of free agency. What is happening? Look, I've reported this since free agency started. The Nuggets were focused on two guys. When free agency started, Dario Saric was one, Russell Westbrook was the other. The Saric deal took a couple days to come together because he's trying to qualify for the Olympics. They wanted to get through that. He was also thinking about going back to Europe next season. The Nuggets always exuded confidence that that deal would get done, and it did. And, Russell Westbrook is the other shoe to drop, and I think that's going to happen too eventually. So, look, losing KCP was a rough start to the offseason, but I feel like the Nuggets' plan, to pivot after that is still on track. They've gotten their one guy that they want to so far, and I think they're going to get Westbrook. And, even with this Jamal Murray contract, I feel like people are trying to panic about what's happening with the Nuggets right now, but I don't get the sense that that's the reality of what's happening this summer.
All right, let's get to some super chats. What do we got, KL? 3 of them? Cedric, of course.
Our good friend Cedric Exquisite. If Jamal doesn't play good, don't give that extension.
I love the idea that because there anything he could do with Team Canada besides get hurt that you're like, you know what? I don't know.
Just don't
If he
give it
plays
to him.
bad, he's getting a max deal. It's still going to
Shoots
happen.
5% from 3. What if he throws something on the court?
Oh, God.
Tim Hortons coffee.
Hot take, please rate. Jokic wins, hashtag 4th MVP. Saric, our next best big, 6th man of the year. P.S. No kill, we want KCP back.
What are we
Jokic's
supposed to
fourth
rate?
MVP
Yeah, Kel.
would be a hot take.
Saric's the second best big on the team. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that'd be a hot take as well. 6th man of the year? Could get some buzz there. I don't know.
Well,
Libela. Will Russ Libela? Will Russ adapt to the culture, ditching your ego, buying into your role? Boogie did great in that area, in my opinion, despite the Willie B beef at the end.
The thing about the DeMarcus Cousins situation is there were no stakes on that season. Jamal Murray was out.
Yeah.
The Nuggets knew they weren't winning a championship or
point.
making a playoff run.
Also,
He could come in and just actually kind of be more of himself than I think people thought he was being.
Also, I'm not sure how true it is that he did great in that area. to
Well,
be
yeah,
honest
that's
with
what
you.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like there was actually a lot of stuff that happened behind the scenes that made the Nuggets not want to bring him back.
Alexander Brown, love the show like always, guys. Thanks for a space to connect with the community.
Heck yeah, man.
Hey, what a treat. Let's go Nuggets.
We appreciate you, Al.
And we'll close
Alexander
out,
Brown.
as we always do, with Cedric Exquisite. What are the odds of getting Trent Jr.? Wish we can.
1%.
It would be interesting if the Westbrook thing falls through. Where does Denver pivot to, and what
Right.
do they do? I mean, that's a possibility. It's a very real possibility, even though the Nuggets are projecting confidence on it. It'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out. All right, cue that outro music. Guys, I think we have a great week ahead. We might have some guests. We might have some big stuff going on. And then, of course, we head to Vegas for the weekend, where we'll be out there covering Summer League up close and personal. So you're going to want to keep it locked right here to the channel. Tomorrow we'll talk Olympics, which will be fun. I'm very excited. I'm so pumped for it.
Me too, man.
Me too.
So
Can't
pumped
wait.
for it.
Sincerely.
Hit that like button on the way out.
We all silly like the mayor.